If 1.7 million people are internally displaced in Gaza Strip, where are they going? To schools, to hospitals, or to streets? Because there is no safe homes, and even the schools are not safe.
غصب عنا يعني احنا فرينا من حرب، قلنا هالبلاد في الجنوب امان، لكن الامان والسلام مفقود في كل مكان.
There is shortage, يعني horrible shortage in the water, the bathrooms, the places, the food and everything.
10 أنفار بيدهم لفة رز هالقد.
طلع قاعدين من وين بنقص خشب عشان بس نجيب لقمة العيش، يعني عشان نطبخ للأولاد الصغار.
خبز هام من الصعب انك تحصلي، لو على فرض بدنا نعجن الخميرة ب50 60 شيكل، الملح مفقود.
Each school of the UNRWA schools contains almost between 6,000 to 7,000 people, and the governmental schools between 1,000 to 1,500 people. So how are these people living and like doing their normal life routine in the schools?
الحمامات مكلفة.
يعني الحمامات بدك مية للحمامات تصف دور، بتعاني بهذه الشغلة كلها معاناة. تيجي بدك تصف دور، مسافة ما يجي دورك بتكون مية خلصت.
الكهرباء فيش كهرباء مثلا، ما بيجي الليل اللي بتكون الظلام، عند الأطفال بصيروا يخافوا بيعيطوا، فيش مية.
So 34 schools, UNRWA schools, and between 12 to 18 governmental schools are opened to the displaced people from the north and even from other places in the south in Khan Yunis. We're talking about the same number when it comes to governmental schools, and about 38 UNRWA schools also in Rafah. So we're talking about a massive number of people.
أمراض هيك بصير مشاكل بين العيال وزي هيك وبنحلها.
كتير مشاكل، مثلا ضغط نفسي بين الشباب، مشاكل كثيرة بتصير.
والله أكثر شيء هيك التكدس، وأطفالنا كلهم مرضى.
طلع هي في سكن منيحة، فيش نوم منيح، فيش شكل منيح.
صفوف، لا حرمات، لا مخدات، لا فرشات، لا حياة طبيعية.
الكبار احنا كمان مش ملاقيين الا العلاج اللي كافي اللي يخلينا نقدر نستمر في هالحياة.
ما تعودناش على الحياة هاي.
Do you remember this video? Yes, exactly. The letters from the sky. The Israeli army dropped again new paper posts telling people that they have to evacuate to Rafah this time.
Israeli forces are dropping flyers in southern Gaza, telling people to evacuate areas in the south which were previously considered safe.
I mean, the post is clear. Not to move to the west of Khan Yunis, not to move to other place in the south, moving to Rafah. Rafah is the extreme south, and it's the borders with Sinai Desert in Egypt. So again, this is very urgent. We're talking to you seriously. If this is not a plan to empty Gaza, then what is it? What? People have been told to evacuate each city going to the south every time. More and more. Where are we going to go now? Rafah. And is Rafah enough for 2.25 million people? Is it prepared with food, water, hygiene, places, warmth and everything? The answer is definitely no. Then what are we going to do there? What's gonna happen for all these people?
يعطيكم العافية. صراحة احنا مش عارفين ايش نعمل لكم اكثر من هيك، او ايش نوثق لكم اكثر من هيك عشان توقفوا هاي الحرب. احنا 60 يوم وكل يوم مجزرة، كل يوم ابادة بروح فيها الاف الضحايا والمدنيين اللي ما لهم اي ذنب. كل مكان مستهدف في غزة، ما في اي مكان امن، مستشفيات مستهدفة، مدارس نزوح مستهدفة، بيوت الناس اللي ما لها علاقة في اي شيء مستهدف. انت طالما عايش في غزة فانت مستهدف. اليوم بس بيت زي ما انتم شايفين في المشهد اللي قدامكم 50 شخص في منزل واحد، اطفال ونساء وشيوخ ما لهم اي ذنب. يعني المكان الخيمه تاعت الشهداء 3 ركام. ما في أي مكان نحط فيه اللي هو شهد 3 ركام. هذا الشخص حسب رواية شهود العيان كان يعبي مية لبيته لأهل بيته لأنه ما كان في عندهم مية، وكان واقف جنب البيت بعبي مية. تم استهداف المنزل واستشهد. وغيره كثير ناس ما لهم أي علاقة وما لهم أي ذنب في أي شيء بيصير في هذه الحرب. صراحة شو بدنا نحكي؟ ما ضل كلام نحكي. إذا بتشوفوا كل المجازر اللي بتصير وما حد فيكم حرك ساكن. إيش بدكم يصير فينا أكثر من هيك عشان توقفوا هاي الحرب؟
Muhammad, the little boy, my cousins, he passed. They found him under the rubble, hit the rubble.
ايش بتبيعي انتي؟
حلو.
اها، انتي من وين؟
سلطان الشمال شمالية.
يعني انتي نازحة؟
ايش نازحة؟
نزحتوا من الحرب؟
شربنا على مدارس مدرسة أبو عربان.
كم أخوة عندك؟
إيه 3 وأختين، إلي وحدة فطار وهي
إيه أنتِ قديش تعملي في اليوم لو بدك تبيعي؟
يعني 20 15 حالة يعني.
طب والله كويس زي يوميتي.
أنت ونيتك أكتر مني.
إحنا كنا قاعدين من الشغل. طيب إيش اسمك أنتِ؟
حلا.
ايش شفتي في الحرب؟ ايش الاشي اللي خوفك؟
الشهداء.
شفتي شهداء على الارض؟
يشعر بدني. والله الشهداء اللي
في اخبار عن بيتكم؟
شو؟
بيتكم ضاير ولا راح؟
راح.
انقصف؟
مش عارف.
أنا اسمي مالك البنا. قبل ما تبلش الحرب بيومين كنا قاعدين نفس هاي القعدة. كان أبوي وأمي كل أخوتي حوالي. كانوا عاملين لي عيد ميلاد. كان في شموع ونار صغير. كان في كيكة مجتمعين عليها. بس لقيت إحنا كنا مجتمعين حوالين النار عشان نعمل أكل كلنا جوعانين. يا رب تخلص.
We have to find solutions to this. We can't turn away from what is evidently a moral failure in the face of the international community. I've just visited the European Gaza hospital, and the things I saw there is beyond anything that anyone should be in a position to describe. What shocked me the most were the children with atrocious injuries and at the same time having lost their parents with no one looking after them. I met people who have lost limbs because they needed to evacuate between treatments. I was told today that the North has lost its entire surgical capacity. We are facing a situation here that will not be healed by sending in more trucks. We need to provide protection to the civilians in Gaza, to the women and children, to the elderly people that I saw today that have nowhere to go. We have to protect the rights of the people. We have to protect the rights of the civilians. We have to protect the rights of the detainees. We have to protect the rights of the hostages. The ICRC will do its utmost to help alleviate and reduce the suffering, but we can't do this alone. And there's not only a humanitarian solution to this. There must be a political one.
I feel that people don't understand that the bombings are non-stop. It's not like Israel bombs 20 times and then they let go. No, they're doing it every single second. And the videos that Mu'taz and Hind are posting look more horrifying somehow than the ones from the past weeks, because there's new bombs that are being tested. I also just texted my friend and she's saying that the way that people are living right now on the streets in the south of Gaza, because people are being pushed to the south, is capable of making even rocks and any inanimate objects cry, because it just looks really, really, really heartbreaking. She says everyone is on top of each other on the streets, just literally staying on the streets. Some people are sleeping inside their cars, but a majority of people are just on the streets unhoused. I feel like I am personally running out of steam because I can't process that we're becoming refugees and that we're all homeless, and that no matter what happens, things haven't changed. Things are just getting worse.
Every single person that you saw in this video is gone now. Israel hit their family home. This is their daughter. She got her results from high school and she's graduating high school. She graduated high school. She doesn't get to experience going to college. These babies are gone. Her parents that are so proud of her are gone. Her grandparents that were sitting there, her aunts, uncles, everybody, they're all gone. They're more than just numbers. There are people that are losing their lives. I know everybody gets focused on the numbers because you want to know how much the destruction is, but you have to remember they are families, they are loved ones, they are kids. She is 18 years old. There are children that are being completely wiped out. When you're calling your congressman today, the person that represents you in your district, make sure to call him and let them know that you want them to support House Resolution 902, which affirms the state of Palestine's right to exist, because they had no problem saying Israel has a right to exist, so they should have no problem saying Palestine has a right to exist, and let them know that if they don't support it, they're Islamophobic as hell. So, House Resolution 902.
If you should watch anything today in regards to Palestine and Gaza, go watch Mu'taz Azaiza's stories. Israel bombed his neighborhood and killed his cousin. This is his cousin Muhammad that he lost. Committing another massacre, this time in Deir al-Balah, which is the middle of Gaza. There are scenes that you cannot believe that you could ever watch in your life if you haven't seen it with your own eyes. Mu'taz was walking between bodies on the ground. Not even bodies, part of bodies that not even identifiable. Body that was blown away and got hung on a tree. What Israel is doing is intentional. They're not just aiming to kill and maim, they're aiming to destroy the spirits of the Palestinians who stay alive. I am not surprised that Mu'taz started growing gray hair of what he saw. The look of defeat that I've seen on his face is just, I'm speechless. Also, go watch Ismail Jude's most recent video. He's another journalist. Standing in the middle of a tent where they keep the bodies. One of the body bags had this writing. Do you know what this means? This word is ashla, which translates to body parts. Meaning anything in this body bag cannot be identified. Ashla Deir al-Balah. Body parts comes from Deir al-Balah, which is the area that was bombarded. And it's not one bag, just like most of the bags that I've seen had the same name. Ashla Deir al-Balah. The reason that you should watch these videos is to become a witness. Israel wants you to look away, to break your spirit as someone who's witnessing the genocide. Screen record the clips and show them to everyone you know. The genocide that Israel is committing against the Palestinians should be witnessed by everyone. You cannot just watch the videos and go on with your life. You have a responsibility to honor these people who lost their lives. Allah يرحمك يا محمد. Allah يرحم كل شهداء فلسطين. ينتقم من كل واحد كان سبب في قتلهم. آمين آمين يا رب.
So while I was in bed last night in my apartment with running electricity, a heater, running water, a shower, a bed, I was in my bed sleeping last night while 50 people were killed in Nuseirat refugee camp, which is in central Gaza, and they also attacked Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. Dozens of people were wounded and reportedly rushed to Nasser Hospital. Oh, and the Israeli occupation laid siege to Kamal Adwan Hospital from all sides, and then started attacking people, trying to force them out of the hospital. Oh, and the Israeli occupation surrounded the Jabalia refugee camp after destroying what they called terrorist infrastructure. Oh, and they told us that Israel is considering pumping seawater into the Hamas tunnel, and that they've already set up at least 5 of these pumps around the Shati refugee camp. Oh, but they haven't confirmed whether or not they're actually gonna do it because the captives are still in Gaza. The fact that they would consider to do this in the first place while the hostages are still there and go ahead as to set up the pumps. Oh, and greenhouses and farmland in northern Gaza were razed. And they also targeted PCRS ambulances, all while the Western world was asleep.
It is December 5th. I have updates for today. If I miss anything, please comment it. As many of you know, telecommunications were shut down overnight in Gaza. In that time, occupation fighter jets launched heavy airstrikes, particularly in the east and northeast of Khan Yunis and Gaza City. Internet connections have been partially restored. Occupation forces have surrounded Kamal Adwan Hospital and have begun shelling it. This is one of the last operational health facilities in northern Gaza. Occupation airstrikes hit a school in Khan Yunis that was sheltering the displaced, killing 30 people. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society has shared footage of the moment an occupation artillery tank targeted the vicinity of 2 ambulances in Gaza. These 2 ambulances were attending to casualties in Deir al-Bala in southern Gaza. Nasser Medical Complex is calling for blood donations due to the high number of injured. They are one of the few medical facilities that is working right now, therefore they are receiving a lot of people. 26 out of 35 hospitals in Gaza are currently out of service, and 52 out of 72 primary healthcare clinics have been shut down. Most of the homes in Gaza have been damaged, and many of them have been completely destroyed, entire neighborhoods being leveled. The occupation forces have decimated Gaza's civilian infrastructure. This includes the homes as well as churches, mosques, schools, hospitals. They are destroying everything. At least 50 people have been killed by occupation attacks on the Nuseirat refugee camp in central Gaza and Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. The occupation army says it has surrounded the Jabalia refugee camp after destroying what it referred to as terrorist infrastructure. Farmland, orchards, and greenhouses in Gaza have been razed due to the occupation invasion. In Beit Hanun in northeast Gaza, what was once green agricultural land has now become brown and desolate, increasing the concerns about food insecurity and the loss of livelihoods. The rate at which the occupation forces are destroying the land is a major environmental issue. This is one of the physical elements of a genocide. To destroy things like greenhouses, farmlands, and orchards is to ensure that the people will suffer both mentally and physically. These are targeted attacks. And here is another element of genocide. An online dispute has emerged between the WHO and Israel after the former said the Israeli army ordered it to remove supplies from its warehouse in southern Gaza, a claim that Israel continues to deny. They ordered the removal of medical supplies in Gaza. We can see their true intentions by the way that they attack and damage hospitals and medical facilities, ensuring that people cannot get treated. They refuse fuel into hospitals as well as medical supplies, and what they do give them is not enough. It's very, very clear the intention of the occupation forces and Israel. Israel is now considering pumping seawater into the tunnels in Gaza in order to push out Hamas. They are considering this even knowing that the hostages could also be there. They don't know what the implications would be of doing something like this. It could result in the death of all of the hostages. But this just shows how much they care, because if they actually did care about the hostages and that was their main concern, then they would have agreed to continue the exchange of hostages. Their treatment of Gaza and their treatment of the hostages shows us exactly what their plans are. Israel is now making threats not just to Gaza, but to the occupied West Bank, to Lebanon, to Turkey, and to Qatar. They said that even if it takes years, they will come to each place and kill the leaders of Hamas. But we already know and we already see how they do that. Turkey has warned them that there would be very, very serious consequences if they stepped foot onto their soil. Continue speaking up. Continue keeping your eyes on what is happening. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Israeli soldiers are shitting their pants. I have gotten insane news about the occupation forces in Gaza. So there's an outbreak of a bacteria called Shigella, I believe, and this outbreak is among the Israeli occupation forces who are on the ground in Gaza, and it's causing intensive diarrhea and internal disease. So they are literally shitting their pants. I read another article saying that they are shitting every 20 minutes. I'm not sure if that is true, but they are shitting their pants. It is a problem. They are all talking about it. Even the Israeli newspapers and media, they are talking about it. Their soldiers in Gaza are shitting their pants every 20 minutes. They have gotten a disease. I guess the prayers are working. I hope them everything bad in life. I hope they shit until they dehydrate and they just on the grounds of Gaza.
It's the 5th of December. Today has probably been one of the most intense days of this genocide since it started 59 days ago. And here's the 24-hour update of what's happening in Palestine. Over 16,000 people have been killed in Gaza since the 7th of October. Thousands upon thousands displaced, injured, and missing under the rubble. I seen a literal hand that had been blown off, pulled out from the rubble on Maltaza's stories. It's like watching a zombie apocalypse movie, but it's real life. My brain still can't fathom that this is real life. And as people here in Scotland and the UK continue on with their Christmas festivities as normal, it just makes me sick to my stomach knowing what's happening on the other side of the world, where the oldest Christian minority is literally on the brink of becoming extinct. The Israeli army pushed further into southern Gaza with relentless airstrikes and ground invasions. This is the same south of Gaza that they claimed was safe for civilians when they were displacing them from the north. The charities at the Rafah border are saying they do not have the resources or facilities to take on another 100,000 plus displaced people from the south to Rafah, where the Israeli army are forcing them. A UNICEF spokesperson says safe zones in Gaza are not scientific, they are not rational, and they are not possible. Something the Palestinian journalists have been telling us from the start. The Norwegian Refugee Council chief says the bombardment of Gaza now ranks amongst the worst assaults on any civilian in our time and age. Let that sink in. That with everything we've learned from history, everything about the world wars, everything about genocides, the worst one is unfolding in front of our eyes in real time. My helplessness is growing by the day, so all I can do is message my MPs, demand for a ceasefire, go out to protests, and make sure that I'm still sharing what I can, what I find, and educating myself more.
The people of Malawi are upset, as they should. You know what Israel is doing over there? Literally made a secret deal with the Malawi leader to send their workers into Israel so they can go and farm and take care of their the farming of Israel. Because you know why? Because Israel imprisoned the Palestinian farmers that were doing all the work for them. And remember when those farmers that came out of their prisons with blue tags on their legs, like it was a Holocaust all over again? Now they're replacing those people with the people of Malawi. And their leader agreed to this, and it was a secret transaction, and the opposition leader was like, no, this is an evil transaction because you're taking our people in the midst of this genocide to go and do the dirty work of Israel. Why? 221 workers in Malawi left to go work in Israel in this genocide. And more, they are suspecting to bring more workers from Malawi. I have a question. Why can't you use your people? Where are the citizens of Israel? The proud citizens of Israel who think that they're better than every other person in the world and they have all these, technology. And why can't you guys do it? Why can't the American Israelis from New York who went and settled in Israel and took Palestinians' lands and homes, why can't you guys do it? Why did you guys all run away into the airports to come back home to America and Europe? Stay there. That's your beloved state. That's your beloved Israel the Great. Isn't that what you guys say? Why are you running? Why aren't you going and doing the agriculture? Why do they have to take Africans to come and do your dirty work? And remember, there was articles that said that they were going to bring workers from India as well. What's going on? What's going on? And the reason why they are able to do this is because they also, again, have ties with the African leaders. They control them. It's all money. It's all money. They control them. They send them military aid, financial aid. They control money. Wherever you want to know what's going on, follow the money. Where are the Israelis? You're over here screaming and shouting in New York. In Europe, go. Israel is in need of you. Netanyahu needs you. Go and work, agriculture and every other thing. Why are you here? Nonsense.
The Israeli occupation is not winning against Hamas, and they don't care about their hostages. Their sole objective is to unalive as many innocent Palestinians as possible, men, women, and children, and to destroy the Gaza Strip completely and forcibly remove people off their land. Even the freaking French president over the weekend was like, okay, what is the military strategy to defeat Hamas? Because you're saying this is going to be 2 months. It could take a decade. And even previously, there was leak from the US that they're not sure what the Israeli strategy is. They know what the strategy is. It's not to defeat Hamas because it's not working. They didn't find the tunnels. They didn't find the hostages. It's to unalive as many Palestinians as possible to force them off their land.
Do you guys know how many Palestinians have been forcibly displaced due to violent Israeli settlers this year? These past 2 years have been the deadliest for Palestinians living in the West Bank, the occupied area of Palestine, where the number of settlers is increasing rapidly. Before October 7th, 1,100 Palestinians were forcibly displaced from their homes due to the increase of settler violence in their regions. After October 7th, approximately 900 Palestinians have been displaced. Since former settler extremist Ben-Gvir has come into power in the Israeli parliament, the rate of settler violence and Palestinian displacement in the West Bank has increased dramatically. Instances of violence include the destroying of Palestinian livelihood. For example, Palestinian farmers in the village Kusra found 500 of their olive trees that they've inherited destroyed by Israeli settlers and their agricultural land covered in cement. Palestinian harvesters in another village, Karyut, were forced to leave their home after being attacked by Israeli settlers, and these settlers built a rock barrier to prevent them from coming back. This village is part of Mathabo, which is a collection of shepherding hamlets in the West Bank and Area C. Under international law, Israel is legally obligated to protect Palestinian civilians from violence and other crimes, and the forcible removement of Palestinians is completely illegal. Even so, it is reported that only 6% of the cases reported to police receive follow-up. And since the beginning of 2022, 93% of the communities in Palestine reported an increase in settler violence in their areas. The rise and the establishment of illegal settlements in Palestinian territory has been a consistent obstacle for peace between the two peoples. The international condemnation of illegal Israeli settlements has remained consistent since the beginning of the occupation of Palestine. Here is a chart that shows the countries that deem Israeli settlements to be a violation of international law, marked in green, and the ones that consider it not necessarily illegal, marked in orange. As always, you can find all sources in the comments.
There are a lot of things about Palestine to talk about, but one thing that I think is important to discuss right now is this idea that our enemy, the Zionist entity, is all-powerful, all-knowing, super strong. And frankly, we've always known that that was part of their propaganda tool to make us feel like we could not defeat them, to make us feel like there was no choice other than to surrender to them because they were just so powerful and knew every single detail of everything that we did, that we would never be able to defeat them. But we've always known that that was propaganda from the Zionist entity to try to get us to stop resisting the occupation and theft of our land and resources. And we are now all seeing together the truth that they are not all powerful. Their facade is cracking and their lies are showing, and we are seeing the damage control that they are trying to do right now through, for example, their New York Times article stating that they actually did know about what was going to happen on October 7th prior to it happening. And frankly, I think that's a lie. I think that they didn't know shit and they're just trying to save face to continue the propaganda that they are so strong and powerful. For years, the resistance and the Palestinian people who are one have been saying that the Zionist occupation and the Zionist entity is like a spider web. That is how fragile it is. That is how weak they are.
A lot of people are asking, where is God? And that comes from a place of feeling so helpless and having so much care and love for people that you don't even know. And you're so horrified and you feel like someone should stop it. I've done other videos where I've talked about that from a faith perspective, but it's very easy for us who are sitting in privilege, sitting and like scrolling through horror while about to go meet with a friend for lunch. But those who are on the ground there in Gaza keep telling us about their faith. And I want you to see how they process this and talked about it as a gift or as a message from God. This was posted by the photojournalist Abdullah Al-Attar, and they are saying that this small piece of the Quran was found in the pocket of someone who was... The Quran is filled with so many different messages, and any part of the Quran could have been in that person's pocket. For anyone who wants to read it, you can go to Quran.com. You can read a translation. It's a very short chapter. It's the 85th one. But that chapter of the Quran talks about people who are persecuted, and it affirms how God is a witness.
Mu'taz has documented the complete obliteration and destruction of his neighborhood. And on top of that, he documented the loss of his cousin due to an airstrike. And he did it all in English. Again, he does it in English to make sure that the world is aware of the injustice happening in Gaza and the severity of it. Someone's hara and someone's neighborhood means so much more than some might think. It's part of a person's identity. It's where they grew up. It's probably where their family has lived for generations. They know the ins and outs of it. It's a very close-knit community. It is truly just a huge part of who they are. And to have to document the loss of it and his family member and just the mass destruction of it in English for the world to see, it just speaks volumes. But the world isn't moving, and I don't know what more to do at this point.
I'm going to talk a little bit about settler attacks in the West Bank. So this is excluding the almost 300 people who have been killed by IOF. Let's talk about settler violence, right? This is by Zain Basravi on Al Jazeera, reporting from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. We heard a report just a couple of days ago of armed Israeli group of settlers attacking one village in the occupied West Bank. One man was shot. He was chased by settlers. He ducked into an olive grove, hid behind a vehicle, and hours later, after the dust settled, his family went to look for him and found that he bled out behind the car where he was hiding. Israeli settler attacks have been on the rise. According to the UN, Israeli settler violence in the occupied West Bank has increased in 2023 from an average of 3 incidents a day to 7 since the Israel-Hamas war started on October 7th. Since October 7th, there have been 241 settler attacks against Palestinians, 30 incidents resulting in Palestinian casualties, 174 incidents causing damage to Palestinian properties, 37 incidents resulting in casualties and damage to properties.
In 2021, it was 1 per day. In 2022, it was 2 per day. 2023, before October 7th, by October 6th, it was 3 per day. And currently, it is 7 instances of settler violence every single day in the occupied West Bank. And Israel has just approved for more settlements in occupied East Jerusalem, which is illegal under international law, but Israel has legalized it and approved. This is the first time in years they've done this. This came out yesterday, by the way. The issue of settler violence is ubiquitous across the occupied West Bank. People here in Palestine describe settlers, often reservists or formal Israeli military, as kind of shock troops for the Israelis here, backed up by active duty soldiers in the attacking, consistently, belligerently harassing Palestinian communities across the occupied West Bank. The issue of settlers is so intrinsic, so penetrative in all of these areas. It has turned the map of occupied West Bank. It has become the kind of archipelago of islands surrounded by illegal settlements. And those cases often turn deadly.
GeneralStrikeUS.com. I emailed them just to make sure that their end goal is the same end goal that we all have, and it is. I already posted a video a second ago confirming that. We need 11 million people. I know that sounds like a lot, but I know that the watermelon people have more than 11 million supporters in the US. We need to find those 11 million, and we need everybody to go sign up. I'm creating a website, and that website is going to be dedicated more to direct actions that we could be doing now until we get those 11 million. But this site and this plan is already in the works. It's well thought out. It's a proven strategy. 3.5% of the population is all that it takes. So please go visit them. Share this to everybody you know, anybody that has a heart. It's not hard. Just go sign up. GeneralStrikeUS.com.
The unimaginable strength of the Palestinian people has had a very deep and personal impact on me as a disabled person. Since June, I've been dealing with a serious lung infection that has me on an intensive IV antibiotic course that takes like 5 to 6 hours of my day. I've had to quit my job, quit school, and basically all I do is try to survive the side effects and anxiety. And it is still nothing compared to what I see the Palestinians go through every single day. To endure what they endure, especially with no proper medical care, is unbelievable to me. And every day I just want to give up on my health or my treatments. I just think about what people in Palestine have to go through, what disabled people in Palestine have had to go through. To be able to sit in my bed, to eat good food, to watch TV while I go through my treatments, it is an immense privilege. And seeing people in Palestine who still hold on to hope fills me with hope, because who am I to give up if they haven't?
I have a few things to say. The first one is that the claims of systemic sexual violence that Israel and the United States is trying to get everybody to focus on have no evidence or backing. This kind of colonial feminism is supposed to make people feel like this topic is essentially untouchable, that they can just insinuate a bunch of one group of people is sexually violent all the time, so it has to be true. The innocence of the colonial power. And when somebody like Hillary Clinton is telling you to listen and not look away, you should absolutely be questioning what is happening and what she's saying. The United States military has engaged in systemic sexual violence in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in the Philippines, and for that lady on CNN to claim that the IOF does not rape Palestinian women when they absolutely do, and it is well documented, is vile and disgusting. And there's actually a lot of literature on not only this, but the entitlement of colonial powers over different groups of women's bodies. Women, men, and children. And let me just say this, it is absolutely 100% so courageous of every single released hostage, Palestinian political prisoner, to come out and share their harrowing experiences of sexual assault, of rape, of violence. Men, women, and children are sharing it, boys and girls. They relied on it being taboo, and colonial powers such as the United States and Israel rely on it being taboo in different communities, that people won't speak up because they're afraid of the cultural ramifications. People are afraid in the United States too. The US legal system treats survivors horrendously, but they relied on them not to speak up, not to speak out. You literally had a former State Department official talk about the rape of a young boy, and then when Israel was confronted about it, they deleted any semblance of possible evidence that they could go to investigate it. And the premise of the mass campaign, the targeted campaign to get you to pay attention to these systemic claims, is something you should question. And not only should you question it, but even if you were to accept the premise, does that justify genocide? Sexual violence is rampant on college campuses. Does that justify violent involvement, violent intervention? Airstrikes? Absolutely not. So think about what they're trying to get people to think. They're trying to get people to think and say, this topic is untouchable. They're co-opting the Me Too movement. They're denying actual sexual violence that happens to Palestinians and saying, see, because we're saying this thing happened, it justifies 1,000 more people killed a day.
The 10 stages of genocide are a framework for understanding how crimes against humanity happen, so we can spot early warning signs and potentially prevent them. Stage 1 is classification. Extremists divide people into separate groups based on their different characteristics. This often happens to create an us versus them mentality or to find someone to blame for social problems. The second stage is symbolization. This involves assigning symbols or names to members of the other group. The goal here is to split the society and make it clear who belongs to who. Third is discrimination. The dominant group uses its power to deny others certain rights or privileges. Particular new laws may limit the freedom of the marginalized ones. Instances of bullying increase and the societal divide widens. Fourth is dehumanization. The targeted group is portrayed as less than human, often compared to animals or diseases. Stripping away the human qualities of a person makes it easier to justify violence against them. Fifth is organization. This stage can involve violent mobs that are tolerated by the ruling class, or even the creation of state-sponsored militias. In some instances, perpetrators now carefully start to plan the next steps of the genocide. Sixth is polarization. Extremists now demonize the targeted group and try to fully divide society by demanding that everyone must take a side. Moderators who want to reduce the tensions are often identified as enemies and silenced. Seventh is preparation. The criminals now plan for mass murder. They may identify victims by name or number, find where they live, and acquire weapons or build facilities to aid their efforts. Eighth is persecution. Violence escalates. The targeted group is systematically subjected to harassment, displacement, or other forms of abuse. Often all of that happens under the disguise of security measures. Ninth is extermination. The mass killing begins. The culprits view their victims as less than human, believing they are cleansing the world of an undesirable element, and in doing so justify the use of disproportionate violence. 10th is denial. Those responsible for the cruelty deny their crimes, destroy evidence, blame the victims, and attempt to rewrite history, justifying their actions as necessary for the greater good. This is why, in the aftermath of genocide, the criminals must be made accountable and the trauma must be addressed. Then the survivors may heal and society can attempt to reunite. Note that the 10 stages may not occur linearly. They can happen simultaneously. Dr. Gregory Stanton, who observed the phenomenon, suggested preventative measures to battle each stage, even though he believed that ultimately only an international intervention can stop such a disaster. In Germany, Cambodia, Rwanda, and other places, help from outside often arrived too late for too many, which is why Stanton also founded Genocide Watch, a non-profit to help prevent the next tragedy from unfolding. What do you think? Is knowledge enough to prevent genocidal events? And if not, what other measures can we take to avoid the next human catastrophe?
3.5%. 3.5% is all that's needed of the U.S. population to change course on Palestine, according to a Harvard scientist. Let me show you. Okay, it's called the 3.5% rule, how a small minority can change the world. Erica Chenoweth, a political scientist at Harvard University, looked at hundreds of campaigns over the last century and found that 3.5% of the population actively participating in the protest to ensure a serious political change. There weren't any campaigns that had failed after they had achieved the 3.5% participation during a peak event. We are in a peak event right now. 3.5% rule. Besides the People Power movement in the Philippines, this also included the Singing Revolution in Estonia in the late 1980s and the Rose Revolution in Georgia in early 2003. Okay, so how many of us is that? In the United States, there are currently 339,996,563 people. What's 3.5% of that? Guys, it's 12 million. Like, it's rounded up 12 million. That's like 12 TikTok influencers from different demographics, representing different demographics. We can freaking do this. We can freaking do this. Where are they? Let's find them. Let's identify them. Let's bring them together. Y'all, 3.5%.
Free Science Israel is losing part 24. Looks like there won't be much traveling for you. As you can see on this map issued by Israel on where it's safe to travel. In green, the places where you can go perform your TikTok dances in peace. The rest of the world, not so much. Including many countries in Europe, like the Netherlands, are suing themselves for supporting you. But who can blame them for losing sense of reality? With all the lies we've been subjected to, even this Israeli newspaper have proven that pretty much all the atrocities from October 7 were just stories without real evidence. Cameras on the wall that were supposed to be used to investigate October 7 miraculously disappeared. Netanyahu, it's time to stop insulting our intelligence. We know this isn't your first rodeo. This letter from Yasser Arafat 26 years ago accuses you of the exact same shit you're doing right now. And look, the US, they ain't gonna be paying your bills if you continue losing. They already dropped the clown Zelensky. I think you're next.
As Israel defends itself, it matters how. The United States is unequivocal. International humanitarian law must be respected. Too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
So the 2,000-pound GBU paveway bunker buster bombs we sent them have finally arrived.
Those bunker busters are manufactured by General Dynamics. Here they list all of the components they manufacture and their services. And here's the money shot. General Dynamics is headquartered in Reston, Virginia, but it has significant presence in Alabama, Arizona, California, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Texas, and Virginia, as well as overseas locations, Canada, Mexico, and on. Find a General Dynamics location near you and organize a protest in front of it. Okay, I'll do it my Alabama locations, Arizona, California, Connecticut, all over Florida, Columbus, Georgia, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, all over Pennsylvania. They've got some weird electric boat thing going on in Rhode Island. Here's more information about that. On the Mission Systems section of the General Dynamics website, you can find all of these addresses. Pause to read. Pause to read. We need to shut it down at the source and start organizing actions at these defense companies, these weapons manufacturers' front doors.
I saw the president of so-called Israel say something right for the first time in 2 months.
War is a war that is not only between Israel and Hamas. It's a war that is intended really, truly, to save Western civilization, to save the values of Western civilization.
And of course, he is talking about the Western values of settler colonialism, white supremacy, genocide, and apartheid. How dare you? We are indigenous to the Middle East, but we're also part of Western civilization. Look, it is complicated. I mean, someone had to bring civilization to these barbaric Arab, Muslim, Christians, and Jews. You should thank us for that. And remember, because we're part of Western civilization and we're the civilized people, we're fighting your fight. We're fighting, and it's not real, to protect you from Islamic jihadists. They're doing all this because they hate Western civilization, not occupation.
Why don't they just surrender so that all this suffering will end? This is Dennis Ross. He is a diplomat who served under multiple U.S. administrations, was the Mideast envoy under Bill Clinton. He negotiated during Camp David. He was noted, by the way, of having an extremely strong bias for Israel during the negotiations. But he puts out this tweet. He says, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza is real. Why not call on Hamas to release all hostages and to agree to have its leaders leave Gaza? This would save the Palestinians from paying a further price. Since this is becoming a common talking point, let me respond to it by telling you all a story. In 1982, Israel invades Lebanon, and they do so with the stated goal of eliminating the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, whom Israel called at that time, you know the word, rhymes with Terrence's. So they invade Lebanon and they bomb Beirut indiscriminately, and the vast majority of casualties are civilian, and they destroy Lebanese infrastructure. And the PLO finds themselves in a situation where support for Palestinians amongst the Lebanese starts to drop, and they feel like they can't withstand this onslaught for much longer. So the United States reaches out secretly to the PLO and tries to negotiate a surrender. And the PLO agrees to surrender on two conditions. Number one, that they are given safe passage out of Lebanon so that they can surrender, disarm, and leave. And number two, that the Palestinian civilian refugees that are left behind in Lebanon are protected. And so the United States says, listen, we made a secret deal in 1975 under Henry Kissinger. We made a secret agreement with the Israelis that we would never officially speak to the Palestinians. So we can't have an official document between the United States and between the PLO. We can't even, have a treaty or a contract. So they literally took out a piece of paper, like just a random piece of paper. I'm not joking. This is true. And there's not even a letterhead on it, nothing. And they wrote down on it, the United States provides assurances to the PLO that they will protect the civilians, the Palestinian civilians that are left behind in Lebanon. I don't think that I even need to tell you what happens next. The PLO disarms and leaves, and what happens to these civilian and these refugees? Israel participates in and facilitates multiple massacres against Palestinian civilian refugees left behind in Lebanon, the most famous of them being Sabra and Shatila. And so when somebody makes this argument, as if that if armed resistance were to go away, that all of a sudden you would have what? Like Palestinian civilians would be protected by Israel that claims explicitly, that explicitly tells the world that they don't think that anyone in Gaza is a civilian, that explicitly says that they're performing collective punishment against the Palestinian civilians. You think they're not going to massacre them if armed resistance were to go away? They're already doing it right now. We've already seen what they did in Lebanon. Right? We know what the implications of a surrender would be. And the idea that the United States or that the international community could protect Palestinian civilians or give any assurances to that regard is a complete farce. We've seen what they've done in the past. We've seen what they're currently doing in the West Bank, where there is no Hamas leadership over there. They have no intention of protecting Palestinian civilians, even if that organization were to surrender and to leave.
Y'all, they're trying to boycott halal stuff now. So you know how we decided to boycott products that support is not real, right? Islamophobes are retaliating by boycotting anything Islamic or halal. And I died at this tweet. This brother said water is halal. I suggest you start there. Ignorance of Islamophobes is beyond me. They have no idea what halal means. Halal means anything that is good for your body. That's literally permissible. So for example, if you drink water, that's halal. Boycott water. Boycott air. Air is halal. Boycott going to the gym. Boycott taking care of yourself. All of that is halal. How are you going to be an Islamophobe but also have no idea the rules of Islam that you hate? Pick a struggle. Even if these Islamophobes ended up boycotting every single Muslim-owned restaurant out there and started boycotting all halal food, the Muslim community will be perfectly fine. There's nothing that you're taking away from us by boycotting halal products. Halal products are actually good for you, so you're just doing a disservice to your body. But I digress. Go ahead and boycott water and air. If it's good for you, go ahead, do it. Do you see us complaining? No. It's always a bad day to be an Islamophobe, and I really wish they understood that, sadly.
Do you guys remember what the name of the attack or operation that Hamas gave October 7th? It was called Al-Aqsa Flood. But Al-Aqsa, Dome of the Rock, is not located in Gaza. Why would they call it that? Because what they were trying to protect is in danger. The Israeli police gave a green light for a far-right march rallying for full Jewish control over the temple. This is going to happen on Thursday. This is a very big deal because Jewish people are not allowed to pray in that site. They're not allowed to worship in that site. And that's what happened the past Ramadan and so on, where they were breaking in, trying to worship there. Right now, there's a waqf. A waqf is an Islamic endowment that administers the site. They're calling to get that removed. So for those that still don't want to attach any type of religious ideology to this, this is what it's been about. Not the whole thing, obviously, but this is a part of it. There is no war or conflict out there that is just has one aspect or one face to it. They want to bring full Jewish control to that area. This is going to happen after a flag parade, and it's limited to only 200 participants. The flag parade is going to go through the gates of Damascus and to the Muslim Quarter. This is intentional, trying to antagonize the Muslim world on Thursday. And every time the Zionists try to go in and take over or do something that they're not supposed to be doing, the Palestinian people respond to defend the holy site. And I would not be surprised if the IDF or the Israeli police respond with a heavy hand. We've seen this happen every Ramadan, and Ramadan's around the corner. Ramadan's in less than 3 months, I think 100 days from now. It's about 3 months, less than 100 days. And it's going to get more and more tense. May Allah protect us, and may Allah forgive us.
From 2011 to 2012, I lived in Palestine. I lived in Ramallah, the capital of the occupied West Bank, and I taught at Madrasa fi Ramallah, which is a Quaker school there. This is the yearbook from the year that I was there. This is me in the faculty photo, and this is me in the English department section. As you can probably tell from my baby face, I was 19 years old, and I was taking a break from my archaeology degree, and I was totally unprepared for what a high-pressure position this would be. It cannot be overstated how heavily Palestinian parents invest in their children. They take it very seriously that those children are the future of Palestine. I especially felt that pressure as a member of the English department because they knew that Palestine would not survive without international recognition, and they knew that that recognition, for better or worse, was not going to be possible without flawless English. So these parents knew every assignment, every reading, every test. Those kids came to school in their uniforms, perfectly turned out, perfectly prepared, and with a very cheerful sabah al-khair, miss, for me. But I'm actually not here to expound on my experience there, but to talk about one specific student. This is Hisham Awardani. I did not teach Hisham. I was teaching kindergarten and 4th grade while he was in the 3rd grade. Hisham is a shining example of what is possible with all of that investment and all of that hope, and with a leg up from a Western mother. He participated in the Model UN. He spoke flawless English. He got into an Ivy League American school, and he pursued a double major in math and, like me, archaeology. And he also did his best to stay safe. When the holidays came around, he didn't go back to Palestine. He decided that he was going to stay at home in Vermont. He was walking with 2 other students from our same school, Kinan Abdelhamid and Tahsin Ahmed. They were speaking Arabic and wearing keffiyeh, and this man approached them and, without a word, shot all 3. We found out this weekend that Hisham, because one of those bullets lodged in his spine, will be paralyzed from the chest down. Hisham and his friends were thousands of miles away from Palestine, but they could not escape the violence and the hatred that is killing and maiming and displacing Palestinians. The world is full of videos right now of Palestinian parents weeping over their dead children. And I guess what I want people to understand is that, of course, the loss of a child is tragic beyond measure in any situation. But it is especially tragic here because those children are the future. They are the future of a people that has never stopped hoping. And they're dying. Thousands of them are dying. Because to be Palestinian, even when you're like Hisham, even when you are lucky and white passing and well connected, even when you do everything right, is to endure constant violence. I'm going to leave you with Hisham's words. Pause to read.
I saw a video that said, I always wondered how people could be bystanders to the Holocaust.
I've been seeing more and more of the sentiment float around the internet, and I'm genuinely confused as to where it comes from. Because are we not still in a pandemic? According to the CDC's own tracker, hospitalizations are up 10%, and nearly 20,000 people were in the hospital between November 19th and November 25th. I'm not here to compare apples to oranges, but historians have pointed out that it's a lot easier to carry out genocides after a pandemic because of the eugenics and dehumanization of disabled people and people getting used to mass death. And that dehumanization and eugenics carries over into multiple different ethnic groups. There's a reason why the United States sent bombs over to Palestine that don't explode, but that deploy knives to amputate limbs. There's a reason why hospitals are being bombed after people have had their limbs amputated. The reason why mass disablement plays a role in every oppressive government in the world. Because when you're disabled, people excuse that bad things just happen, despite the fact that the only thing standing between you and a disability is luck and time.
الله معنا قوة أكبر من بني صهيون يشتم يقتل يدفن يقبر أرضي ما بتخون دم الأحمر والأخضر في طعم الليمون نار التوراة تقوى وتكبر نحن المنتصرين وين الملايين الشعب العربي وين الغضب العربي وين That's weird.
Fuck Israel, Israel a bitch. Bitch, we out here mobbing on some Palestine shit. Say fuck Israel, Israel a bitch. Bitch, we out here mobbing on some Palestine shit. Free Palestine, bitch. Israel gon'
Don't forget that it's not just about free Palestine, but the Palestine that's freeing us along the way.